Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show by the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner, and we are rocking and rolling in the off season. It's Tuesday, November 15th as we record this show. And we got a bunch to get to today. Some college action from over the weekend. We got an interview with Ben Lohre from Champions Johnny Bravo. That'll round out our interviews with the winning teams from the national championships last month. And we're also going to talk about the AUDL All-Star Game, as well as the Western Ultimate League AUDL Showcase Mixed Game with Portland and Seattle representation before the All-Star Game. Keith, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing okay. I know that we have all but made it a rule that we don't talk about the weather, but bro, it is cold, and it's weird because it was 70 3 days ago, and now I can't feel my fingers anymore. It's what planet do we live on now?
It was.
At least it feels like wintertime.
Jarring change.
Yes,
I went out on Sunday with no coat because it had been so warm, and I was suffering the entire day because I had no jacket.
So I went to practice, and all of our practices are at nighttime. And there was a women's basketball game, and our practice is literally next to the basketball arena. So there's no parking anywhere near there. So I had to walk across campus. I'm wearing the cold Under Armour, the layered Under Armour, a sweatshirt, a winter coat, and a vest over that coat. I'm walking to practice, and there are people walking around in shorts. What? Northeast is weird. I know I'm from the South, but come on.
You're very from Atlanta.
I know.
I mean, it's not that cold, folks.
It was 28 or whatever.
It's in the 40s. It's in the 40s. It's cold, but it's not crazy. You know what? Maybe it's not as cold as the crypto winter that is happening right now, Keith.
Brutal.
There are so many crazy things going on right now. We got the Elon Musk Twitter takeover. We have the FTX bankruptcy. We've got this election, which is still not over. We still don't know everything about the election. And the election was a big surprise. It feels like pretty interesting times. And a lot of companies are laying people off. Are we going to have a recession? And then, you just got Ultimate. It's just chilling.
Are you buying the blue check mark for Ultiworld or what? What's good?
Listen to this, okay?
I know the service is suspended momentarily, but
I'm going to speak on this. I have said for years that if there were Power Twitter subscription plan, that we will get it 100%. If they actually come out with features that are useful, I would be willing to pay for them. We use Twitter all the time for work and obviously to, share content that we're creating. And so would I pay $8 a month for access to better video and photo features, for access to, extended analytics or something there's a list of things. Better tweet deck. I would pay for better tweet deck. So yes, 100%. Would I pay just for the blue check mark? No. Ultiworld Disc Golf got a blue check mark, but Ultiworld didn't. I don't know why. Well, there was no rationality behind the decision from Twitter to give one a check mark and not the other.
I mean, now that the check mark, you could just purchase it. I get that you can look to see if it's for being notable or whatever, but wouldn't it have just been really easy to just use two different symbols that are thematically similar, a blue star versus a blue check mark? Blue Total star disaster. Means you're still. You're an important person. You're a notable personality or an organization or whatever. I don't know. It seems kind of obvious, but whatever. I'm not a billionaire, so I must not know anything,
Twitter has struggled mightily to be a company. It's this incredible service and product. I mean, there's obviously a lot of negative things about it too, but there's no better, when some big news event is happening, instantly I go to Twitter. And it's clearly the preferred social media platform of Ultimate Frisbee. That's fair to say, right?
It is. Maybe that's the missing piece. Maybe Ultimate Frisbee Twitter has destroyed Twitter. Like maybe
this was the problem.
we're really like the jet. Like if you trace it all back to ground zero, it starts at Ultimate Frisbee Twitter.
but I hope that they're able to make the service better over time. I am not rooting against Elon. I think a lot of people are, but I am not. I want them to figure it out and make the service better instead of it being kind of bad, because it's been kind of bad for a long time.
I don't know if I agree with that. I just think they haven't innovated very much. But you know, I mean, the primary platform still functioned for what we cared about, which was expedient distribution of communication and information. But it's yeah. I guess I'm only rooting against Elon in the sense that like it's funny to watch a bird.
It's been a while. I don't even know. I feel like I've been more entertained by the FTX stuff, but
the FTX
that
stuff
involves
is
like
also very funny.
Unfortunately, like all of these things involve people having like horrible losses and sadness. So I'm not happy about any of that, but it's been just a crazy few weeks. Anyway, let's talk about the AUDL All-Star game and this 8-on-8 showcase game. Now, remember, they had these rules, in case you didn't watch, they had these rules changes in place, kind of testing out some new concepts. They had a 5-second stall count instead of a 7-second stall count. They introduced a 2-point line. Pulls were not from the end zone line. They said it was going to be 10 yards, but ultimately it was the brick mark, so a little further up. And then they had a backcourt violation. So once you crossed midfield, you were not allowed to go back across behind it once you'd established possession in front of it, just like in basketball. So, Keith, All-Star game, East Central wins 42-24 over the Southwest. Southwest inexplicably never really trying to shoot 2-pointers and just got destroyed. But, you know, whatever. It's just an All-Star game. Who really cares? What did you think of the gameplay with these new rules?
Well, you know, I think that it's hard to say with just like a single game, like, okay, this is how it's going to work. I mean, you had one team that like basically didn't use the rule that we thought would have probably the biggest impact. Although maybe you could argue the 5-second stall count is the biggest rule change. You know, I thought I was expecting the 5-second stall count to have a bigger impact on how play felt than it did. I still harbor some like reticence about it on a giant field. You know, I just think you're going to end up like taking away some ability to execute some of the things that make the game interesting. And like, there's a point where when you squeeze it too tight, like, right, you squeeze, if you adding restrictions is going to force innovation, evolution in some ways. But there's a point where you squeeze it too tight where like you remove the different number of viable paths to success and you start to make it so it's like, okay, this is the only way to be successful. And like, I can see a world where the 5-second stall count is like, okay, well, the only way to be good is to run Dominator. And like, that's what happens. That wouldn't really be that exciting. I mean, we were just talking about how boring the Dominator offense is. Now, the 2-point line like kind of changes that math a little bit. You know, if you think about how the rules work in concert with one another, they kind of lend themselves to different directions. But, you know, I think that it was a fun experiment. It's good that they're trying things. I'm not sure how many of these will land overall as far as like, okay, I didn't think this was like, wow, the game is a million times better with these things or like this made a massive improvement. I will say, you know, Cameron Brock from the Indy Alley Cats did a thread on Twitter about the various rules. And he was a big fan of the 5-second stall. He felt like that was like, okay, we can move forward with this. Let's put this in. Just a faster paced game, and he thinks defenses will be able to capitalize on it more in the future, which I think was one of the things that I think a lot of people were thinking, okay, they want to find a way for the defense to have more advantage because games are just like hold fests or throwaways. Like the defense wasn't doing enough. I'm not sure the league quite feels that way though. Even if some fans might feel that way, some of the like more intense fans, I'm not sure the league is like out here trying to make defenses have more advantages. They like the points. I'm pretty sure. Well,
we see in pro sports, every single decision made is about improving offenses and making it harder for defenses, frankly. Like that's where the trend has gone over time, you know, with some minor differences, right? They moved the 3-point line back in the NBA, but you know, you can't body up on ball handlers anymore in basketball. They're eliminating the shift in baseball next season. They're trying to increase the pace of the game. And so like everything is about increasing the pace, increasing the scoring. And that generally comes at the expense of defense. So I thought the 5-second stall count worked. And it's so hard to make assessments about these things, sort of like how they would play out over the course of an entire season, given that this was like sort of a low defense exhibition game. But I think that requiring players to throw a little faster, and it's not like 5 seconds is super fast. It's not 3 seconds. You know, it's not like you catch and have to immediately hit a reset. Like you have time to look up field and then find a reset. But it certainly spins the clock a little faster and makes the offensive players have to think more quickly. And so I like that adjustment. I think it could work. And I know they've been talking about trying to do this for some time. I would not be surprised if they adopted this. The 2-point line was just horrendous. I thought it was awful. Yeah, I thought it was extremely boring. I'm not interested. It made the kind of one of the worst parts of the AUDL worse, which is just jump bally hucks. I don't really like it at the end of quarters, and having to see it over and over again with 2-pointers would be a very unpleasant way to watch the game. It's like, I don't know how to describe this exactly. Big hucks into coverage can be exciting, but it's like the cherry on top of the game. If you make that the primary focus of the game, it really loses something essential about what makes Ultimate interesting. And I thought the 2-point line forced a lot of just sort of like, let's juice it to the tall guy. And, you know, of course, there were some big, there were some big exciting skies, and those can be fun. But when it happens over and over again, it loses a little bit of the potency of the game. You know, I think, when I think of NFL football, the things I don't think about the 65-yard throw to an open receiver down the sideline as being the most exciting part of the game. Sure, it's nice sometimes, but what's exciting is watching somebody make an amazing move, and beat a defender in open space with the ball in their hands. Like that, you don't want it to just become send it back behind the 2-point line and just juice it, because the thing is, a double point, having it be worth twice a normal score, is so advantageous that it will become the dominant focus of the game. The same way the 3-point line has become the dominant focus in NBA basketball. But keep in mind, that's only 1.5x times a normal score, as opposed to 2 times. So I think that it's dead and gone in one try.
Yeah, Brock also had some thoughts on this and said that he felt like it was like a rich get richer mechanic rather than a comeback mechanic, which I do think is fairly poignant. Yeah, it could be used in a comeback, but it also could be used to like push a team down or just pull away in the end. Yeah, like if New York wants to go out there and jump ball at Yacht, just like this happened in this All-Star game over and over again, like that's not going to help an underdog add variance to the game necessarily. It's just going to lead to New York being able to pull out a big lead. I guess in theory, like every huck adds more variance. I don't know. But yeah, it's not a particularly pleasant way to watch the game. And I think that when we discussed potential rules that you could use to add into a comeback, we recognized that to me, there were 2 issues that we had to deal with. One, which was that you needed to create a mechanic that was like a risk-taking mechanic that could allow teams to come back from down, but was also interesting and easily understood. And alternatively, that when your increment of scoring is 1, it's really hard to create a fair comeback mechanic, because if you do any scoring, it often is going to be at least twice as much as the original scoring. So like,
right.
Really what you probably one of the best ways to go about it would be to make goals worth more than 1 point. But I know there's a lot of hesitancy to do that because, it adds a bunch of layers of confusion. That's one of the things I think that's most confusing about the NFL to a lot of people who aren't familiar with American football. It's like, why do I get 6 points for this score? It's weird. But it allows you to mess around with like what other scores are worth. Same thing here. So same concept. I don't know exactly how to do it. We floated some ideas, but I don't think a 2-point line is really the answer. And I'm not even sure a 1.5 line would really be the answer either.
I don't like the way that it affected the game flow, personally.
I considered like, what if you did, and I think I want to say we've talked about this in sometime in the 10 years we've been talking on the show, like a like special box inside the end zone that's worth more points, so that it's less about like hucking it, although you could score there via huck, and more about like working it into that box. And how does the defense overload that box or whatever? Like, it could be in the middle of the end zone. It could be the corners of the end zone, like the back corners or the front corners or whatever.
Like the green in golf, like you move the hole around. You never
like
know until you get there.
Yeah, it has to be the same like size, but you have the ability to like place it in a different place each game. Yeah, or each home field. Like each field has a different location for the box. Yeah, I mean, you could mess around with stuff like that.
I don't know. It feels too gimmicky.
It's
Keith.
very gimmicky. Yeah.
I think that's not the answer.
I mean, you're going to need basically a gimmick to create a comeback mechanic here.
You want to know what my idea is? Go to 8-on-8. Did you watch Showcase game? It works. The space on the field, like if you think about it, every ultimate field that we play on, right? When you play mini, you play threes, the field is a certain size. And when you expand the field to a certain point where you're like, okay, let's play fours now. And if you want to go to fives, you make it bigger again. We have the dimensions already correct for 7-on-7. It's what we play in Club Ultimate, College Ultimate, every form of the game except the AUDL. The AUDL is like, well, we want to play on a football field because it is better for, we can rent a stadium and it has a football field. And it's easy to understand. I have some quibbles with that, but I understand the sort of like logistical limitations of needing to have a field in a stadium, and you're not going to be able to just have your own lined stadium at this point. So I get it. But the problem is 7s on that field creates too much space and not enough defenders, and the game isn't as compelling. So go to 8s. We just watched it. It was fine. It was great. And I don't see any reason that they shouldn't consider that as a way of balancing the game better, because you're still going to get plenty of offense, but it's going to allow the defenses to do more interesting things with zone schemes and other ways of, sort of balancing out the attack on the field. And it's about the size that you would make the field if you went to 8s and you were playing 8-on-8 on your own field.
I'm with it. I'm cool with it. We'd have to change the name from Dish 7s though, but yeah, it works. Like, it makes sense. I'm for it, and obviously it lends itself well to mixed play, as we saw in the Northwest Cup Showcase game. That's something that's been floated for a long time, basically as long as the PUL has existed, maybe even prior to that. That idea of 8-on-8 mixed play is floated. So it's great that like actually getting a chance to see what it looks like. And I thought it played out pretty well.
I think it would totally work. I mean, if you wanted to go to the idea of going to mixed would be that like you're going to get a higher level of competition because you're going to have the best 10 players of each gender, as opposed to going, 25 deep in the men's competition in a city, for example. And I thought it worked really well.
Yeah, we got some great highlights. The game actually turned out to be pretty exciting. I mean, a little pull away from Seattle in the end, but they were tied going into the fourth quarter after a little run from Seattle. JC Jones with the crazy highlight catch. I think the play of the night,
the highlight of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean that or Jaime Perez's sky over Ben Yat. Those were the two
alum. Let's go, baby.
That stood out for me. So yeah, JC Jones with a big time highlight. That felt like SportsCenter quality to me. It felt like that could get on the top 10.
Brick mark pulls. I don't need it. Just pull from the end zone. Didn't do much for me.
Brick mark pulls only works for me if the players buy into it, which is like start throwing higher. Right now, you can add more hang time and still cover the distance necessary. Like that to me could actually create a defensive advantage that feels meaningful but not stodgy. But if you're just like throwing really far, that's not really that interesting.
Backcourt violation. I stand by. that it's a good concept, but they need to change the execution of it a little bit. I think there should be a sort of a second blue line type thing like in hockey. And once you pass that, then you can't go back across midfield.
They did let people throw back your first pass if you were bringing in the pole, I think.
That's correct.
I saw somewhere. So that's a good adjustment to keep teams from just like roller pull pinning you. But you know what? I thought it worked better than I expected, given that they didn't have that condition that you're building in. Like that there was the threat of you crossing that line and then immediately getting trapped. I actually think that was an interesting potential strategic wrinkle. So I'm for the 2-point line in either form. Or sorry, 2-point line, the backcourt line. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay, so just some quick stats notes. Abe Coffin wins MVP. He had 6 assists, a goal, a block, and 676 yards of offense to lead the game. And he had no turnovers. Excellent performance from Coffin. He and Yacht led the way for the East Central. Ben Yacht had almost 600 yards, 5 goals, 3 assists, mostly very dominant. But yes, Jaime Perez got him once. KPS also just a monster. He had a 2-on-1 Sky for a goal that was just nasty.
Yeah, that was nasty.
And he had 567 yards of offense, 2 assists, 3 goals, and 2 blocks. Quinn Finer probably the bright spot for the Southwest, although they just got crushed, Keith.
Yeah, they did. And you know, the game, it was long. I like that they did these like player sideline interviews mid-game, so there was a lot of like personality from the players, but you know, it suffered from the same problem that all pro all-stars games have, which is that it's really hard to find the balance between like wanting to watch people goof off that, you know, are celebrities or whatever in the ultimate world. I guess we're going to go with it. These are celebrities of the AUDL, and like play a sport, but not that competitively. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing at stake. It's pretty hard. And I think major pro leagues have suffered for this for a long time. And I think teams should go. I think all-star games should be full goofy. Like you can't do the competitive thing. It's never going to happen. So just like lean into it. I don't remember if anybody remembers the Rock and Jock games that the celebrity games that MTV used to do back in like the, I don't know, early 2000s. It should be like that. Like you should have totally wacky rules, you know, like mixed in random people that just forget having a competitive game at all. It's not
but Keith,
not helpful.
Keith, my counterpoint is that the NBA has figured it out.
No, I don't think that's true. I actually
Three-quarters
don't
of
think
nonsense.
it's true.
Three-quarters of nonsense. Okay, right? So you can just play no defense, dunks, whatever, Steph Curry shooting from half court. And then they're like, okay, now it's game 2 plus 16 points or whatever they do in the fourth quarter. And everybody plays hard. And it's an awesome ending.
I love NBA basketball. I love basketball in general. I still barely care about the All-Star game. I'll probably tune in or I'll have it on in the background so I could or like pull it up on Twitter or whatever. But I really just don't care. And I think I'd have more fun. I think that like the celebrity game is as fun as the All-Star game.
Oh, wow. That's a terrible take.
They've ruined the dunk contest, which used to be the best part of All-Star weekend.
The dunk contest sucks. But the All-Star game's better than it's ever been. It's must-watch TV. Honestly, I can't believe you're saying this. I'm shocked.
It's sad to say.
Did you watch the last 2 years of All-Star games?
The Elam ending is definitely a big improvement. Don't get me wrong. The Elam ending is soft cap.
You can just watch the end. You can just watch the end. But the end is amazing.
But like, I don't know, like watching like centers shoot 3-pointers or like do James Harden step backs is like it's funny for a couple minutes. Like, but that watching people catch lobs, like I might as well watch the layup line. Like, I don't know. It's like nobody plays any defense until the fourth quarter. And even then, it's like, you know that they're not really, they're playing some defense, but they're not like really getting into it.
Keith, for the 2023 All-Star game, I will text you when the fourth quarter starts and you can
thank you.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Ben Lohre, longtime vet for Johnny Bravo. We'll be right back. Joining us now on Deep Look is Johnny Bravo veteran Ben Lohre. Ben, congratulations and welcome to the program.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Pretty awesome season. So,
oh my gosh, what an incredible run you all made to a title. You've been on the team since 2015. So you came into the program right after they win with that super stack 2014 unit with Jimmy and Kurt and everybody else. And I just am so curious to hear from you. Like, there were some lean times relatively for Bravo through those years. And then to come to this Nationals, have it start the way that it did, and then end up coming out on top. I mean, that's got to be just something amazing to experience for someone who's been on the team as long as you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think my first year, the expectation was our goal obviously was to back up the championship. And we had a very stacked team that year too. And that was the year that we went out in pre-quarters. And that was one of the most kind of disappointing seasons I've had, I think, for a lot of people on the team. Just the expectations going in and kind of where we ended up and the results was really hard. And then I think, the year after that, like we had an awesome team again. Kind of we lost a lot of the talent, but kind of brought on a lot of the people who were really brought into Jim's system. We also had a new coach, and found success in that kind of maybe we weren't as talented, but we had more buy-in in terms of what people were trying to do, better chemistry. It felt like, and so made a semis run, and then 2017. Again, kind of a disappointing season. And then I think, starting with 2017 and even 2016, like there hasn't been great continuity in terms of the roster. Like we've always had a decent amount of roster turnover. So that makes it hard season to another to kind of build. And I think we're going into this year, especially with Lotus making nationals last year, we're excited about the talent pool, and it's kind of a matter of, all right, can we put it all together? We felt like our ceiling was winning, and it was kind of like, all right, how do we come together and make that happen? And then you mentioned how nationals started. I think we didn't play our best game on Thursday against GOAT. And they brought it. Like, it's nationals. Like the best team in any given game is gonna win most of the time. And so, they kind of punched us in the face a bit. And when we, made it close at the end, got a few late breaks, and they ended up winning it on Universe. But it was kind of that moment, I think, for us as a team. We talked about it afterwards. Chance Cochran, who is a first-year player this year, was like, hey, we can't do anything about that loss now. It's like how we respond to that moment that's going to determine our season. So, this can be kind of a blip, or, the game that shifts the momentum that changes, our mentality, or it can be the beginning of, Bravo crumbling. And so we get to determine that. So I think that kind of fired us up. And, we, played Omen next, took care of business. And then I think in the truck stop game, we felt like that was a really high level game. Even given how windy it was. I think 6 total turnovers. And so I think after that game, we're kind of like, well, that's what championship ultimate is. Like, the team that turns it over the least, that plays the most clean, is going to win those games. So I think we obviously wanted to win that game, but I think we felt like we played really well and Truck played better. And so they deserve to win it.
You mentioned feeling like that the ceiling for this team was a championship. When did you get that sense? Like the day that you walked in tryouts, or at the end of last year after seeing Lotus, or did it take, being a day 2 of nationals to think like, okay, this team really could do it?
Yeah, I think the excitement started like after Lotus made it to nationals last year, and we had played with some of those guys had been on Bravo before, and opted to play Lotus last year. So we're kind of like, wow, like there's some really talented players. If they join Bravo, like we could make a deep run. And I think it really sets in, after we're doing well in the tournaments we're in, like I think with the exception of going out in quarterfinals at Pro Champs, we were playing in the finals of all the tournaments that we were at. I think that's right. And so, like I think that is pretty confidence inducing, and we felt good, and we're like, wow, like things seem to be coming together. We have the talent. It seems like people are bought into the systems, and we're, playing well. This, why not go all the way?
So pre-quarters, you're down 3 midway through the second half to Sockeye. What did it take to climb out of that hole, which obviously kickstarted this huge run through the bracket? And to come, it's rare to see a team come from pre-quarters and win the national championship. So you're up against the ropes there against Sockeye. What turned it around?
I think in our halftime huddle, we talked about the team that cleaned it up more quickly would have the best chance of winning. It felt like a pretty sloppy game, I think, or I shouldn't say sloppy, but there are a lot of turnovers. The first point, I think there might have been 3 apiece, and Sockeye ended up holding. So that I think that's kind of what we focused on offensively, is like, okay, like let's, all we can do as an O-line is just score when we're on the field. And I think that was kind of a mentality shift that carried itself throughout the rest of the bracket, at least as an O unit, is like, our job any given point is to score and get the D-line back out there. And, we felt like we had the best D-line in the country. And so, the more time they're on the field, the better off we're going to be. And then I think defensively, we tried to go back to kind of the system that TK had created, and kind of our default defense, where it's like, we want to force Sockeye into these situations that we've drilled all year, and make those margins small, and make them beat us where we're okay with it, like how we let teams beat that system. And so, yeah, I don't know. Those are the things. And the reality is, like, there's 2 teams, and like Sockeye like had some turnovers. And so we were like fortunate and lucky in a sense too, where like, we kind of turned it on, and maybe they didn't match our level, or there were some, unlucky bounces on their end, and we were able to capitalize. So.
You played the Struckstop team twice at nationals. What changed so much between the 2 matchups, between seeing them in pool play and seeing them in the final?
I think the biggest, to me, the biggest difference was like the stage. Like I think in pool play, like I don't think there was quite as much pressure on them, and I think in the championship game, like that's the game that like every team wants to play in and wants to win. So I think that's part of it, is that there was more pressure on their end. And for us, I think it was like, hey, we're like, the expectation here isn't for us to win. Like, Truck Stop is favored. So like let's use that to our advantage. Let's try and come out, be confident, and apply pressure, and let the situational pressure see how they handle that as well. And then the other thing too, like I think we made some adjustments, at least defensively, and then also offensively. We knew them so well, and it was like, hey, they will throw IO flicks all day long. Like, we want other teams to do that. We do not want truck stop to do that. So, how do we adjust to that, make them do something else to beat us? And then offensively, like I think we felt a lot of pressure, a lot of turns came when we were on the sidelines all year. So it was like, at times it's like, we don't even need to look downfield. Let's just get it off the sideline, keep the Frisbee in the middle of the field.
We talked about coming in to the tournament that mostly looking at your pool, I don't know that we necessarily anticipated the matchup recurring in the final, but seeing Truck and Bravo playing in pool play, it's like, well, Bravo's one of the few teams that's beaten this truck stop team when they were kind of in this run starting at the US Open. And so it seemed like a good matchup on paper. And then, they got what kind of looked like a comfortable win, but was very close ultimately in pool play, with a very few number of turnovers. And then that happened again for you all. You didn't turn it over very much at all, particularly offensive line had hardly any turnovers at all. And they just played one of their worst games of the season, it felt like. But what about your Bravo team made you a good matchup for them? Because they really didn't lose a lot of games to teams other than Bravo.
Yeah. Well, I think we were comfortable with them, I guess. Like, I think we all enjoyed playing with them, and there's kind of it's easier for us. I felt like it was easier for us to be confident in a game against Truck Stop than, if we had seen a team like Ring or even Pony. We played Pony once. I don't think we saw Ring all season, where there's kind of like, I don't really know what they're going to do, like matchups wise and stuff like that. So I think like that gave us a lot of confidence, where like, all right, we know what to expect. I play offense. So like one of the big things for me offensively is like, all right, who's my matchup going to be? How do I take advantage or try and like beat that particular person? And so I think, knowing like who's guarding you, it's like, okay, like this is what's worked in the past, or this is what they're trying to make me do. So, either I'm gonna make that really hard, or I'm gonna take advantage, go the other way. And so, I think offensively, we all felt pretty comfortable of like, hey, we know this team, we know what they're trying to do, we know these matchups, like we can beat these guys. And then I think, the same thing on the other side of the ball defensively. It's like, we've played them a lot. We know our matchups, we know what they want to try and do, and we can force them to do other things. So yeah. And then I don't know how many losses Truck had over the season. I know we beat them at US Open. I'm not sure if they had some other ones, but the fact that we beat them too is one thing that instills some confidence of, hey, we've done it before. Why not again?
You've been at this for a while, and so you've had a chance to see what the environment is competing at nationals, and we talked about how it felt like there was a really deep group of teams that could potentially win this title, and how far it went was up for debate, but now I guess it's not for debate. It at least went down to the 8th seed. Did it feel different to you? Does the environment feel different as far as how many teams are really in that upper echelon and can beat one another in the men's division?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's been, when was the last time a team won back-to-back championships? Like, it's
2010, 2011 Revolver.
Okay. Yeah. So like, I think And then Revolver was winning it basically every other year until 2017. I think it was the last time they won. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that kind of speaks to like, you know, there are a lot of teams competing up there towards the top. And then, you know, like winning, I think gives you a newfound confidence. And so the fact that, you know, Sakai, Pony, Ring, you know, have all won in the last like 3 or 4 years, like I think those teams go into it being like, hey, we could do it again. And that kind of gives them an edge. So I think naturally, like as more teams are winning, there's going to be more teams who are like, feel like they could win and who are going to be competing at the top. Yeah.
This raises the question, can Bravo win again next year? You know, especially you have the memory of trying to repeat, and it's a challenge. So what will it take for Bravo to be the first back-to-back winner in more than a decade?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, I think we've got a chance. Yeah, I think staying hungry is the biggest thing, you know, and like being committed. I feel like, you know, I'm sure every team that's won, I've never won. But I think, you know, most people after they win, they're like, hey, you know, we won this year, but there's another level that we can reach. And I definitely feel like we feel that way, where it's like, wow, we did it this year. Like we already know there are things that we need to work on, and that we could be better at. Like, of course, there's another chance that we could do it, and you know, it makes us even more confident that we can do it again next year. And I think, you know, you see that kind of just in the group's Slack channel. Like people are getting into the gym. Like, you know, there's somebody in the gym like the Monday or Tuesday after nationals, you know, like posting something. It's like, hey, you know, like people are getting after it and they're still hungry. So I think that's the biggest thing is just not being satisfied and wanting to do it again, you know? And I already feel that. You can already tell that people are excited for next year and want to back it up. So
it helps to have a bunch of like your top contributors at nationals be like 22 and under.
Totally. And they like, yeah. And I think, you know, that's the reason why we did so well, is like those guys were able to play confidently, even when it was like their first time on that stage. Like, I mean, it just speaks volumes about how good of players they are. And it's kind of like, wow, there's no way we don't lose. Like if we're all playing confidently and as talented as we are, like, yeah.
How big was it for you to have Alex Atkins back? You know, he had just a massive game in the finals, 2 goals, 4 assists, a block, no turns, 405 yards of offense. And, you know, of course, missed most of the season with injury. So what did it mean to your O-line to get him back out there?
I mean, it was amazing. Like, I think we like, you know, as soon as he was injured, like I think his commitment to the team like never wavered at all. And so like he was basically, I mean, he was at essentially every practice for, you know, I think he was out mid-July, you know, through his first practice back, I think was the practice after regionals. So like 2.5 months, of just like being at practices, not playing, kind of doing his warm up or PT, whatever it is. And then his energy is just so infectious, and he's like a really good teammate and just like pushes us to be better. And so to finally have him on the field, and like making contributions that way, I think just it made us all super happy for him and also for ourselves, because he's obviously an amazing player, super talented. You and it's fun. It's just a lot of fun to like have him out there. Keeps the energy high and keeps us loose. And, his confidence is infectious, where it's like, hey, there's no doubt in his mind that we're going to put it in. So of course.
How much was this the 2-year window here with Lotus, popping up and taking some players who probably would have played for Bravo last year? How much was this like all a grand plan? Like, hey, we'll if we can make this investment, it can pay off for us in the future. Was Bravo in on the plan, or was there a big picture involved here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there was a grand plan. I think we, as somebody who's been on Bravo for a while, I think there was definitely disappointment when we heard that they wanted to, play Lotus and start their own team last year. And some frustration with that of like, man, if they just would play Bravo, like we would be really good. I think we were good anyway. But there was some frustration there. I think at some point you kind of, realize like, hey, it's up to them and it's their choice. And so, I think pretty quickly as the season progressed, we understood why they wanted to do that and we're okay with it. And I think the scariest thing is it's a lot of fun to play with your college buddies and those experiences. Like, I don't think anybody would trade. And so I think going into this year, the biggest question was like, they had so much success last year. Do they want to run it back and do it again? And so, when some of their top guys were like, yeah, we're in on Bravo, I think at that point you're kind of like, wow, this might have worked out for the better. The fact that they got to play more central roles, go to nationals last year, have a good year and do what their goal was, is fine. And now we get better players for it this year. I think it worked out.
Did you all have to try to convince those guys to join up with Bravo? Seems like it would have been easy for them to just say, hey, let's play Lotus again.
Yeah, totally. It's a good question, and one that I can't necessarily answer. I think there was definitely some coaxing going on. Quinn is kind of Quinn Feiner, who was a captain this year and last year, was the guy who was closest with them and the one who opted not to play Lotus last year when he could have, was still on the college roster in the fall. So I'm sure he was in their ear, as soon as nationals was over, college nationals was over, like, hey, you guys, we gotta play Bravo.
Okay. I want to ask you, do you feel like you had an easy path on your side of the bracket? The other side of the bracket was loaded up with a lot of teams who, Pony and Ring and Truck. Did you have an easy path?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's easy to look back now and be like, oh yeah, maybe our side was easier, like Pony and Ring having won in the last 3 years. Like we didn't have to see either of those teams was nice. I think at the time, like we were, it's cliche, but I think it's true. Like we were pretty focused just a game at a time. And kind of a point at a time, really. So it didn't really matter to us at the time. We weren't, we didn't wake up on Friday morning and look at our side of the bracket and be like, oh, wow, like we see a path all the way through to the finals here. I think it was mostly just like, all right, we got to take care of business against Sockeye. And then, if we do that, then it'd be Machine. And then we kind of go from there. So yeah, I think, Rhino beat Machine or beat Ring on Thursday, and the game I think it was win or go home for them. And so, like you can always look at it and argue one way or the other over like if the path was easy or not. But I think while we were at nationals, we weren't really thinking about that stuff. So
Denver brings home 2 championships. Molly Brown also winning in the women's division. What's it been like having both of those things kind of coincide? Bring 2 championships back to Denver when maybe neither team was really favored. And I don't know whether or not Molly Brown was the favorite, but I think in a lot of people's minds they weren't. So, what's it been like celebrating and having this experience shared with Molly Brown?
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. I mean, and it started, like right after we had won. They like rushed the field and were celebrating with us. We haven't had like a big Molly Brown Bravo get together yet. But there have been some like smaller events where, somebody brings the cup and we all get to hang out and, so it's been really cool. It's an awesome moment, I think, for our community at large to celebrate with us. And, we wouldn't be here without the support of them. So it's pretty cool. It's a cool moment.
You have the rare opportunity, not unprecedented, but still rare, to play on the O-line with your brother. What's that like?
Oh, it's so cool. I mean, he's just, he's one of my favorite people in the world and one of my favorite teammates, if not my favorite teammate. And so it's really cool. The energy that he brings and the confidence, I think, is something that like really helps me a lot. I don't even have words. I don't know how to describe it. It's so special, and we both feel really lucky to have that opportunity. And I think throughout nationals, it was kind of like, every point we would give each other a hug, coming onto the O-line and just kind of help remind us of, what makes the game special and why we like playing. And, that we get to play with each other was pretty cool. And he also like, he makes big plays, which is just awesome to see as a teammate, and then have him be your brother too. You're like, yes, come on. That's pretty sweet. So
my brother can't throw a forehand, so you're way ahead of me. So.
All right, Ben. Well, thanks so much, and congratulations on this amazing run. I mean, after pool play, are you thinking to yourself like, we can still win this tournament? I could imagine that there would be some doubts in your mind after 2 losses in pool play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I think the truck game on Thursday was kind of like, ending up 1 and 2, I think was a disappointment. But I think on the whole, like after that truck game, we were like, hey, this is something to build off of. I think we were excited to play Sockeye. And so it's kind of like, all right, like let's go beat Sockeye. And that's the first step. And we can do it. I think I don't know if anybody spoke it out loud, but I think we felt good about where we were at and what we could do. And the energy was good throughout the tournament. I think there was a bit of a lull in the Sockeye game. It's tough when you're down, we're down 8-6 at half pulling, or 8-5 at half. But I think, after that second half and we come out on top, it's just like, man, there's nothing that can stop us, is what it felt like. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you very much. And congratulations once again to you and Bravo for the win.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Ben Lohre with us here on Deep Look. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Deep Look. Great to talk with Ben Lohre. And man, never won before, Keith. Like, got in just after the Bravo win. He's been one of the best players in Club Ultimate for a long time.
He's a good ultimate nerd player. You want to impress people and be like, you know who really makes Bravo go? Ben Lohre. You know what I mean? It's not always like the highlights, but just rock solid player and very thoughtful guy, and great to have somebody who's been around for so much of Bravo's legacy of these past few seasons. Yeah, for someone who's been such a central part of it, great to have his perspective.
So we're going to turn our attention now to the college division. We had some of the big highlight fall tournaments this past weekend. And we had the Missouri Loves Company, the big Midwestern tournament, as well as the Classic City Classic, big East Coast tournament, Southeast mostly for the women's division, and then kind of like a all across the East Coast and central part of the country for the men's division. And so your winners, MLC, Colorado in the men's division gets the win. They bagel Purdue in the final. They bagel them. And this is Colorado.
I'd ask if it was like Purdue forfeited or something. No, they really bageled them.
They really bageled them. Colorado is playing without all of its U24 tryout players who are at the U24 West Coast tryouts that happened this weekend. And they still managed to win all their games and win the tournament. They are going to be extremely good this year. That is not a surprise, with a lot of players coming off of the Club Nationals win as well. And in the women's division, Wisconsin gets the win over Texas in a much closer game. And a nice win for Belladonna to kick off their sort of competitive fall season. And over at CCC, Pitt men get the win over Georgia in the final. And the Georgia women dominate everybody en route to a very comfortable victory in the Southeast. So there you go, Keith. No big shock winners here, although maybe Pitt feels like a little bit of a surprise coming into CCC here.
I guess I wouldn't have pegged them as a winner, but it's not like a shocking result. I think it's more shocking that like UNC and Brown didn't quite deliver, and that Georgia was as strong as they were. I'd say that's the biggest surprise there. This Pitt team's obviously experienced and they're talented, and it's certainly a great time for them. I mean, they haven't always had great CCCs. We've seen some aberrational results over the years. I think Henry Ng is going to be a front runner for Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
And that's not exactly a bold claim or anything, but he should have this Pittsburgh team who had a great year last year. I mean, I think it's easy to forget how strong their season ended up being by the time they were playing in the semis and nationals, but they have the pieces to be in championship contention. But that Colorado team that you talked about at MLC, I mean, they might start the season at number 1 overall, and once our preseason power rankings come together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question that I have is like, where does this Pittsburgh team fit into the conversation? Because I think you've got UNC and you've got Colorado up at the top. I think Brown, at least based on what we saw at CCC, has to be seen as having taken at least a slight step backwards. I mean, they still have Jacques Niss and they still have Leo Gordon, but maybe not quite the same supporting cast that helped them get all the way to the final last year, where they lost to UNC after that dominant season that they had. But, Pitt is very good, but are they going to be able to beat these powerhouse teams?
Oh, I think they're going to have the tools. Consistently, that's another question, but I fully expect them to be in that top 5 to start the season and to be around that spot pretty much all year. I mean, I think that they will be competitive with the title contending teams. And that's kind of where they were last year. They were like maybe a tier 2 team right behind the title contending teams for most of the year. And, I guess that's a lower end outcome for them, but that would still be pretty good. And I think it would be very surprising if they're like not in the top 10, but I think they're going to be in the mix to win major events against the likes of UNC, Brown, maybe Georgia if they're gonna. I think there's plenty of reason to be hyped about Georgia, especially after this past weekend. But I don't think I expected them to be quite at this level this early on.
I'm not surprised.
I mean,
I'm not surprised at all. I if anything, last year was the disappointment for Georgia after the way that they played in the fall. Remember, they got to the final, and they were ahead of schedule. And then they were disappointing last year relative to that. But I mean, they have so much young talent that's ready to roll and step into bigger role. I mean, Aiden Downey is just an absolute beast. I feel like Georgia clearly not quite up at that top tier, but very much in tier 2, semis contender this year. And who knows, maybe they can make a run.
Be interesting to watch. Looking at some of the other results here that we had. You look at MLC, Carleton makes it to the semifinal. Sans Declan Miller, their star freshman, and Cullen Baker, and a couple other folks who were missing for various reasons, including the U24 West tryouts. So solid result for them. Wisconsin also had a good weekend. So I think those are the two teams that, big surprise. You're going to see them contend in the North Central. The team that's a shocker is Minnesota.
Yeah, not good. Yeah, not so good, Keith.
No, closed caption blows raspberry. Like they went 0-3 or something to start the weekend. Like this is a concerning result. Like I never would want to put too much stock in fall results. So take it with the entire bag of salt, but not what you want to see to start the year.
Well, I mean, last year, they had no defense. Basically none. Terrible defensive team. And their offense was held together by the glue that was Cole Jurek. And he's gone. So it's going to take some time to relearn competitive college ultimate without Cole Jurek. I mean, it's just a fact. I'm not going to write them out of the conversation here and say, well, I guess they're not going to nationals this year. It's way too early to say something like that. But I do think this is the kind of tournament where if you're the coaching staff for Minnesota, you say, all right, well, we're not going to bail out our, first and second year players by just stacking the O-line with all of our vets for this fall tournament that does not matter at all. We're going to give these guys opportunities to go out there and make mistakes. And you have to do that. So I think Minnesota will probably be long-term fine. There's a lot of good players coming into that system. And there's a lot of good players who got chances to step into roles last year. They're going to be okay. I do think that I think the North Central in general, I'm like a little skeptical. Like, is Carleton going to be good? Is Wisconsin going to be good? I think these teams are going to be borderline. They're going to be fighting for bids. It would be a real win for that region to come away with 3 bids. I will not be shocked if they only get 2 or even 1. It's possible.
Yeah, Wisconsin's going to win the North Central, but I agree with you that 2 bids is the move. Carleton's going to be the higher ranked team going into regionals. Wisconsin's going to win North Central. Just go ahead. Go ahead and book it already. We know how it goes.
It'll be an interesting region this year for sure. Where are we with the Georgia women's team? I mean, this again. I forget what they did at nationals last year. Obviously they've relied a lot on a couple of players, but I mean, these results have to be encouraging for them to just come and blow the doors off teams. FSU is pretty good.
Agreed, and this obviously, when they're playing almost exclusively Southeast teams, this is going to be informative about the Southeast. So it does tell us that they are the top dogs in the region, and by a long shot. And I think that's also probably a sign that they are going to be nationally competitive. They have some strong recruits this year. They have had talent, but it's kind of been about, like building up those second and third level players on their team. Like obviously we've known about the star power, and a couple of their names from the team have like filtered down throughout the years, but now they have to move into the post Perivier era. And they have some players who they feel like are willing to step up. And Quincy Booth is now a first-year player on the team. Like, I think that's going to help buoy them. But I also think that kind of thing can help you in the fall a lot. If you have a lot of your talent concentrated in a couple of players, can help you look really good in the fall because you don't need to like work on making those players better. They're just out there a lot doing their thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit closer come next year. Certainly, having your talent concentrated is something I think most people would accuse Florida State of in past years. So, I do think Georgia's going to be a big favorite in the Southeast, and not, I'm not thinking they're going to go to semifinals necessarily or anything, but could they be a top 15 team this year? Yeah, I don't see why that's out of the realm of possibility for them, especially after this performance.
Yeah, they went 2-3 at nationals last year. They missed pre-quarters. Pretty disappointing. I mean, they opened up their tournament with a game against Florida State, a team they beat 13-6 at Southeast Regionals, and then lost to them. And I think that's the danger of being a team that's concentrated a lot of its offense through one or two players, is that if a team schemes well against you and is able to limit the damage of that player, you lose. And I think that's been the problem for Georgia, frankly. But there's so much good talent in that area right now that's starting to filter into these teams. Long term, I feel pretty good about where Georgia is heading, and I think they could rise back into national prominence.
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves for them winning a hometown fall tournament against regional competition against what has historically been like the second or third weakest region.
Yeah, and they were the heavy favorites coming into the tournament. I'm not trying to say that this tells us they're going to go to semis. I'm just saying that the broader structures are in place for Georgia to become a more relevant national team and not just a Southeast top program.
Yeah, that would be a nice boon for a program that has had those kind of years before and hasn't really been able to capitalize them in modern years. And that has been something that they've been struggling with. Like even in their best years, it's been tough for them to kind of break through in nationals. Had some disappointing performances. So I'm sure they would love to go in and really deliver.
How about Purdue making the men's final? Now I know they got smoked by Colorado, but that's not really the meaningful result for them. They were probably going to lose that game no matter what. Purdue's been a team that's kind of bubbled up to the nationals level, and then they kind of were a little bit underwhelming the last couple seasons, but maybe this is a sign of a resurgence for them.
And why not? I mean, the region has a power in Michigan, but there's been opportunity for second teams to come up, and certainly they beat quality competition along the way. You can't say that they phoned it in. I think teams like Wash U and obviously Carleton are going to be pretty good along the way. So nice results for Purdue, and definitely they're going to be a preseason buzz team. There's always a couple teams have a strong fall result, and we give them the preseason buzz because they earned it. You get the wins. We'll give you some hype, and especially if things seem like they aren't fluky. And so I do think that this is going to be a team with a little bit of buzz and a little bit of expectation now going into the spring, and how they deal with that is going to be the real test. Sure. This is a team we might see it like something like Queen City Tune-Up. Like how are they gonna look at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of performance that will get you invites into the top tournaments during the spring if you want to go to them. So will we see them at a Smoky Mountain invite? That'd be an obvious place for them to end up, and I'll be excited to see what they can do. They beat Carleton on Universe, but not a full strength Carleton team. So it's not like they it's not like it got to the finals of CCC, right? There are levels to these tournaments. And then Wisconsin over Texas in the women's division. What kind of expectations do we have for the Belladonna team this year?
Well, I think that they've had a lot of positive signs over the past few years, and they get overshadowed by how strong Carleton has been, and often that makes them look worse because they go to regionals and get absolutely wrecked by a team that's very, very good. I think there have been strong signs, and admittedly, Texas is not what they have been in the past. The past few seasons have been tougher for them, so not quite as banner of a win as you might hope for, but promising for a Wisconsin team that has a lot of programmatic advantages, a lot of things that they've been able to build on. And certainly, a great community to build with too. So that feeds talent in. A team to keep an eye on. they're going to be expected to finish behind Carleton. So it's going to behoove them once again to get a second bid for the North Central. But these are the kind of results you have to do that. Beating teams like Texas are the things that could define whether or not you're going to get a second bid.
All right. Well, that's where things stand as we head towards the true winter. Most teams wrapped up at this point with their tournament play. And we will get ready for things to kind of unthaw in January. Florida Winter Classics, Santa Barbara Invite, and then on to the early majors, warm-up, Pres Day, and into the March. So lots to come here on Deep Look. We're going to have a big 12 Days of College Ultimate Series once again, and looking forward to discussing more about the upcoming college season, including the unveiling of our preseason top 25. So that is going to do it for this edition of Deep Look. Thank you so much for tuning in. Join us for our subscriber bonus segment Out the Back, where we're going to be talking about the US Open and YCC moving from Minnesota to Colorado. We haven't had a US Open. We've never had YCC outside of Minnesota. It's been there since the inception of the event. And the US Open has basically been there for what feels like almost 10 years. But it will be returning now to Colorado, where it was held in its inaugural year in 2012. And there's some backstory here that we are going to get into. So join us there, and we look forward to talking with all the subscribers. Go to ultiworld.com/subscribe to join for less than $4 a month. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.